Okay, so right now I've just got two layers or three layers in this document right here. As you start to get more layers, do be aware that your interface is modular. You know, you can readjust it so you're able to work. You know, of course, this is showing ads over here. We can't take any of our tool sets over there, but do be aware that your navigator is a really good way to sort of navigate around your workspace. With my navigator active, I can zoom my image in and out. Also, with my magnifying glass selected, I can use my roller or scroll roller to zoom in and out of the image. But if you're zoomed really far in, you can go to your navigator palette here and just grab and move your image around. Especially when you are doing cleanup, up close cleanup, it's good to be able to move your workspace around like that. So one way we looked at doing this is just using the magic wand. If you've got an image which you know, has a white background, it's very easy to just use the magic wand to select an area. Do notice, because though this has a shadow underneath it, it did not select all of that. You can adjust the tolerance of the magic wand, and basically what that does is it tells it to sort of group pixels that are about the same value or color, and it might select more for you. Realize right now we have the space outside of this element selected. You can also edit that. You can invert the selection. If I go to edit and invert selection, now I think I have the space outside of it selected. So that can be useful sometimes. So I'm going to deselect that. So I'm going to go to edit and deselect all. And again, we did look at the technique of cleaning up this space with just your eraser. Again, do be aware your eraser, you can use either a hard edge or a soft edge. To get something to look photoreal, it's better to use a soft edge. It's going to be very noticeable if you do use a harder edge. And of course, you can change the size of the tool also too, and that can speed up your process too. And again, you don't have to get rid of everything. You are just making a composite, a composition of these 15 objects. 10 of them are going to be images, and 5 of them are just going to be text elements that you just incorporate into it somehow. But again, figure out how to you know, creatively do that. This is just a technical chore for you to figure out how to get this done. Do be sure to save your work very often. As you deal with large files, and especially in raster environments, the software can quit. This is a browser-based software also. It may freeze up. So every 5 operations or commands you do, try to resave your document. Just be very aware of that. Okay, so this is one way that I showed you where you can clean these objects up, but I'm going to show you another way that you can utilize these with selections. So I'm going to drag this layer down to that icon there, and realize as you're working on these elements too, you can turn off the visibility of everything else except the one you want to work with. Maybe you want to put a background underneath it. So I made an empty layer, layer 5, but I'm going to reposition that layer, bless you, underneath all the rest. Okay, you can drag these and reorder. So now I want to fill this with a color, so it can be a background aid for me seeing that I don't have any bits of stuff left around in here. The easiest tool to fill this with is just your paint bucket. That's your fill tool. Right now, black is selected as a color, but I could click and choose something else. And I've got my bucket. Always be sure what layer is selected before you do a major operation. You know, don't just, mentally go to the next layer. Before you do something to any of these various layers, be sure you have the correct layer selected. So I do want this to go into this bottom layer. I'm going to click, and that puts that there. Thought it was going to be a different color. Let's see what happened. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Try that again. Okay, so so now I've got a different background back there. But again, let's look at some other ways that we can chop up these images. You can do different things. One of the things you can do is use your selection tool, the marquee tool here. The marquee tool in this software, Pixlr Editor, is basically giving us two choices. I can either do something rectangular, or I can do something circular. So let's say I wanted to do something, you know, oblong or circular, elliptical. And let's say I select just that area right there. Okay? Right now, currently, layer 3 is selected. So if I go to Edit and Copy, and then back to Edit and Paste, we'll see what happens. The software went ahead on that paste command and generated another layer. And this is a perfectly fine element for you to work with. You know, often if you're doing a flyer layout, a poster layout, what have you, you're not going to need the entire image. So you can just make crops of that element. So let me try that again, show you another technique for making, I don't think this software allows me to draw. No, it doesn't actually allow me to draw shapes. That would have been useful if I could do that, but that's Photoshop. You know, this won't do everything that Photoshop does, but it's still pretty cool. Let's try this clone stamp tool. And basically what you can do with this tool is select an area and then paste with it, I think. Let me see how this works. It works a little different than it does in Photoshop. And let me choose this shape. Then I'm going to make that shape bigger. Okay. And what it allows me to do is if I hold down the control button, that lets me copy the area that I control click on. Okay? So and it's going to do it in the shape of this brush that I've chosen too. So, you know, these are the only brushes currently. We may be able to add, yeah, you can actually load brushes on here too. So that might be an option for getting more shapes in there. But so what I'm going to do is hold down Control, and that shows me that I'm selecting an area, then click. And then if I start clicking now, I think it's going to place it in the very same layer. So I'm going to actually go to a different layer. And I've still got my clone stamp tool, bless you. And it'll make sort of a pattern. It does matter how big your selection tool is in terms of what it's going to show you. And that didn't work exactly like I thought it was going to work. So good thing, that's the great thing about layers. If you do something goofy, you can just delete that layer. You know, you can either back up or just delete the entire layer. That's the way I suggest that you work. Copy something to a new layer, do some work on it. If that works, cool. And then you can go back and get rid of the original layer. Don't think of this as just a layer by layer operation. You're actually taking elements from a layer, get the bit that you want to work with. For example, you know, again, if I wanted to use just a real, whoops, wrong tool. Let me go to this one. Let me deselect that. You know, I could do a window selection of just one area, copy that, and then paste that. Let's see some other stuff.
Are you copying and pasting on the layer you're working on, or are you copying and pasting on a different layer?
Well, you always select, like notice this. If I go to this layer and I select it and I do copy, it's going to copy the layer that is selected. And then if I do the paste command, it's going to generate a brand new layer. It'll generate that in a brand new layer. It would be a lot cooler if we actually were able to draw the shapes. But let me show you how to do a letter, a cutout of a letter. Let's see if I can manage that. Okay, so I'm going to deselect. Go to my type tool. and I just want a D. I'm going to make the size of it pretty large. Let's get a more and also that's not as large as I need, so I want to make it bigger. I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform. Let me try that again. Edit. I don't think that's going to allow me to do that. Let me see if this will do it. Nope. This layer, oh, it's giving me the instructions. Right now, this is a text object. It's not really a bunch of pixels. So I need to rasterize it. Rasterization just means turn it into pixels. So to do that, I am going to go to this layer. I'm going to right-click on it and do Rasterize Layer. Now I can't re-edit it. While it was a text object, I could have backed up and typed something different. But now it's just a single bunch of pixels. So now that I can do that, I can go ahead and scale it. And anytime you do a transformation, before you can move on, you have to apply the transformation. Just hit the Enter button to apply the transformation. So now I want to do a selection. I want to see if I can load this layer as a selection. I don't know if I can or not. I might have to just do it. Let's try Select Pixels under Edit. That's what I'm looking for right there. So now I have that very shape selected. So what's cool and useful about that is, let's say I go to this background layer and turn off the D because I just wanted its selection. I don't really need it anymore right now. I'm going to turn off this dog, and then on this layer here I am going to, actually let's do this one. What I'm going to do is do my edit and my copy, and then go back to paste. And it's really cool what it makes. And usually what I do when it makes stuff like this is I will reposition it so it's in the correct, well, sometimes I'll offset it. So let me offset this one a little bit. Now if I put that right back where it belonged, or maybe offset it just a little bit. But the next step is I want to give this layer a little offset so it looks like it's lifted up a little bit. So I'm going to do that under Layer and Layer Styles. And I'm usually interested in the drop shadow. And I can increase the size of that. You know, how far away it is, and really get a really cool effect. So, and you can also do the same thing, you know, using a layer as an element to, so let me turn some of this stuff off because I know this gets confusing. Let me do just one more little demo. Okay, I've got a blank layer right here, number 9. Let's say I take my paintbrush. You know, I can look for a shape I want to draw with. Let's choose a color. Color's not going to matter for what I'm trying to do. But let's say I want to make a template to do a selection with. All right, so you can paint anything you want to. And then, again, I'm going to go to Edit and select Pixels. And those pixels in that layer, once I have that as a selection, again, I can go and use it to, you know, make stuff up. Okay? So, again, don't worry about your final product with this design. Just try to use the software, get a little accustomed to it, and, you know, we'll just go from there.